G'day and welcome to the Brits in the NRL Week 3 review, and I've got some awesome news for English fans. Of course you got a team in the grand final. It's the Canberra Raiders after they defeated the South Sydney Rabbitohs 16-10 in an absolute tense thriller at a sold out GIO Stadium in Canberra on Friday night. And the star of the show from an English point of view and also from a Canberra point of view was Josh Hodgson. He was in absolutely everything. He had a blinder. Now stats, as I always throw at you every week, don't show everything, and with Josh Hodgson they definitely don't show everything, because here's his stats for the night. He only ran the ball twice, one tackle break, one steal and 48 tackles, but it doesn't show the impact he had on this game. He was absolutely immense. As I said, he was in everything. He did a one-on-one steal. He also took that to new heights when he actually did a steal over the try line, stopping Cody Walker from scoring. He just did some massive hits. It was the best I've ever seen Josh Hodgson tackle. He belted absolutely every bunny in sight, and he led that team from the front. It was a brilliant performance from Josh Hodgson. Now for the other Englishman, John Bateman wasn't at his best. There's a few errors in his game, but he still had an impact. He ran for 108 metres, 46 post-contact metres. He's only slight of stature, but oh my God, he is tough as teak. He is an absolute hard man to put down. He also had a tackle break. He had a one-on-one steal, 2 offloads and 39 tackles. Another good night out for John Bateman. He'll want to play better next week. He'll expect better of himself next week. And also it was a mixed night for Elliot Whitehead. He only ran for 45 metres, couple of offloads, 32 tackles, but he missed 6 tackles, which is very unlike Elliot. It was that sort of game, though. It's that time of year. Teams are tired. Everyone's carrying some sort of niggles. He also had a couple of errors, Elliot, including throwing the intercept pass that Adam Reynolds, like a thief in the night, plucked out of the air, which led to the Charnze-Nicoll-Klokstad sin bin with about 10 minutes to go. And Raiders were up 10-6 at that point, and it looked like it was all over. But after biting their nails for a few minutes, Josh Papali, who was the player of the match, powered his way over the line to send the Green Machine fans into raptures and the side to the grand final. Ryan Sutton didn't play, and look, he won't play in the grand final next week unless there's an injury, because no one's got suspended. But it was the two Joshes that led the way. They starred, Hodgson and Papali. I've already waxed lyrical about Josh Hodgson. Josh Papali was immense. His rucking of the ball just bent the bunnies back time after time. The bunnies did a great job pinning the Raiders down. It was dropout after dropout, but Josh Papali just kept bending them back. A few offloads, and then there was one tackle. He nearly knocked Adam Dewey back to Redfern. It was an absolute belter. He actually got put on report for it and penalised. Absolute joke. It was just a great hit. And thankfully the match review committee saw some sense, and Josh hasn't been charged at all. So he'll play in the grand final next week. The only player to be charged was actually Sia Soliola, but he only had to pay a fine. He's free to play. And then Josh Papali, with the Rabbitohs pumping them, the Raiders' scramble defence had held strong all night. They're up 10-6, down a man in the bin, and Josh Papali just skittles Rabbitohs like 10 pins. Damien Cook, get out of my way. He just powered over the line to send the crowd into absolute ecstasy. Now, the Raiders' defence, as I said, was under the pump all night. Cody Walker had an absolute fantastic game. His best game since pre-Origin. He was weaving his magic. He had the Raiders turning inside out. Adam Reynolds' pinpoint kicking was on point. It was just beautiful. I don't know how many dropouts the Raiders did. It must have been 6 or 7. And Adam Dewey at the back had a fantastic game. But they just had a lot of trouble breaking the Raiders' defence down. It's been their strength all year, and they showed it again. That's why they're in the grand final. The Raiders led 6-0 early after their defence. Josh Hodgson did the key play. Corey Allen rucking a ball back out of his end goal. Hodgson smashed him, the ball's gone loose, Jared Croker plants it down, and then it was wave after wave of red and green attack. The Raiders held firm until Dane Gagai split between Nick Cotric and Jared Croker to make it 6-all at half time. Then in the second half, early on in the second half, Jack Whiten just came up with a bit of luck and amazing improvisation He was actually losing control of the ball, but was able to skillfully get his foot on it and did a perfect little grubber for himself 10 metres out from the line, scored in the corner. And so it was Raiders up 10-6, and it was game on. The Rabbitohs were tired, they were fatigued, but they hung in there until Josh Papali scored that bustling, game-breaking try that sent the Raiders to their first grand final for 25 years. Now, for the Bunnies, they threw everything, as I said, at the Rabbitohs, but it was a sad way for the Bunnies' season to end. They'd battled injuries and all year in Greg Inglis's retirement. It was a very sad way for George Burgess to end his NRL career because he was dropped from the squad before the game. He didn't feature in the 17 at all. Now, Sam Burgess didn't have his best game. He started surprisingly at prop, and he was in the line of Big Papa's fire. Papali, obviously being man of the match, got over the top of Sam. Sam played busted. He hurt his shoulder when he coat-hangered Jared Croker, but I think he was already playing injured. He's been playing injured for a few weeks, I think. But he still produced 146 running metres in 52 minutes with 49 post-contact metres, but the fatigue showed. He missed 7 tackles, which is very un-Slam and Sam-like. Thomas had a strong stint. He started on the Pine, but he produced 100 metres in 27 minutes with 31 post-contact metres and 16 tackles, but it wasn't enough for the Rabbitohs. So the Raiders march on and they will face the Sydney Roosters in the grand final after they defeated the Melbourne Storm 14-6 at the SCG in front of 32,000. Ryan Hall didn't play. He warmed up with the side, so if there's any injuries through training this week, he's there ready to pounce. But the game was an absolute grind between the top two sides. There was nothing in it. There was only 3 tries scored. Now, I'd predicted pre-game that this would be like Chernobyl. Well, Reactor 4 blew up after just 20 seconds. Its lid got blown off when Nelson Asafa-Solomona and Siasiwa Takiaho just went at each other like 2 Marsh Pride lions for mating rights. Now, the ref bloody put him in the sin bin. Why? Hands up, who didn't want to see those two go at each other for the next 20 minutes ripping into it? Oh my God, that's what the fans want to see. We want to see our gladiators going for it. It was just a bit of a slap and tickle. Get on with it. Seriously. Now the Roosters, there was not much in this game at all. They scored through Boyd Cordner after Daniel Tupou had leapt high. He had about 4 blokes on him, but in the end goal, but somehow managed to get a pass away, which Cordner put down. A couple of Latrell Mitchell penalty goals. It had been the Roosters dominating, but it was only 8-0 at half-time. As you'd expect from the Melbourne Storm, with their season on the line, an early exit, they come blasting out of the blocks in the second period, led by big Nelson Asafa-Solomona. He was immense, and it was no surprise that the big fella got over the line to make it 8-6, and the Roosters were on tilt. The Chooks were choking, they were in all sorts of trouble. The Melbourne Storm were coming hard. The feathers were flying, and Luke Keary showed what pressure he was under. At one point, he grabbed Felice Kafusi by the hair, got a handful of locks, and then, for good measure, gave him a whack under the chin. Now, surprise, surprise, Luke only got a finable offence, so he's free to play in the grand final next week, but he did finish the game limping. He went into the game with an ankle injury, and it looks like he aggravated it a bit. He'll play next week, but he will not be 100%, which is good news for the Raiders. The game was in the balance at 8-6 until the Dally M favourite, James Tedesco, did what he's done all year. He made the difference. He scooted through and just 10 metres out, just used his pace, went for the line, squeezed in there, and he got the try, which Latrell Mitchell converted, to put the Roosters out of reach, 14-6, and into their second consecutive grand final and keep the dream of back-to-back title attack alive. So next week, it's the Raiders versus the Roosters. I'll have a grand final preview for you in a couple of days. And the star for the Raiders was Josh Hodgson.